All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutation to the Akim and to the elect that are scattered across the four corners of this earth, pushing the truth and faith and in all sincerity. I'm the brother Shema Olive from the GMS Houston camp, and this is going to be a scripture of the day lesson. And I'm going to be going into, the first couple of scriptures, in Galatians, the 6th chapter. All right, which should be very, very quick. Let me see. I might do a couple more verses than I already had planned, but we'll see. But yeah, we're just going to start here at Galatians 6:1. It said, "Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted." So it says, if a man be overtaken in a fault, someone goes off, someone stumbles, make a mistake in his truth, right? Which, that's going to happen because we are not perfect individuals, and nobody, should require that type of perfectness from us, in the flesh, because that's just, it's not realistic. Okay, so these things will happen to us, and we will fall, and we will, do things, that we don't necessarily, want to do. All right, but things will happen. And sometimes we're just gonna make stupid decisions and stupid mistakes. All right, those are the type of things that we are subject to with this flesh. But it says, "Ye which are spiritual," right? The ones that are in this truth, all right, they got this truth. That the spirit of the Lord is dealing with. All right, it says, "Restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted." All right, so basically, trying to get this man back on track in the spirit of meekness. So it's not going to be done, out of a proud spirit. All right, someone who basically enjoys doing something like that, rebuking a person, right, for their own personal benefit and their own personal gain, because it makes them feel like somebody. All right, it's not the type of spirit to be in, because it said, "Considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted." So you gotta consider, what if you was in this situation. All right, you gotta think about it. This could very well be you. So if this was you in this situation, how would you want, others to respond to this? How would you want others to approach you about this and to handle this and to deal with this? All right. So that's just something, that, we gotta keep in mind, that if it was us, okay, so, basically that's just going into, mercy and all of that, right? Going into this meekness. All right, but can only go so far as well, because if a guy just can't get it, it's like he's not even trying. He's not even, trying to correct his own mistakes, his own actions. Hey, then, hey, he on his own after that. All right. Verse 2, it says, "Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Yahweh Shai." So bear ye one another's burdens, right? The things, the heavy things, that we gotta deal with. All right, the tribulations. All right, we assist, one another, mentally, emotionally, when a brother needs assistance, he's supposed to be there, to help him through it. Especially if we have that experience, from going through said things, whatever it may be. All right, you can shed some light on what you did and, how you handle it. Right, and that's going to, benefit that particular brother. And it says, "And so fulfill the law of Yahweh Shai." Right, because what did Yahweh Shai say? Or these two hang all the law? about, loving the Most High, right, with all your heart, with all thy soul, and loving your neighbor as you love yourself. And this is basically that. All right. I treat them as if it were you. I treat them as if it was Yahushua. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. All right. So if you think yourself higher than what you actually are, right? Having some pride about that, okay, or some type of seeking some type of vain glory, or you got some type of image, in your head, that you're better than everyone else, right? Or you are, you're above, right, doing these particular things that's required. That I just read in Galatians 6:2, right? You deceive yourself, okay? Because that means you don't really know what this thing is about. All right, because it's not about, like any one man, like any one of us. All right, so you can't make it about you, right? It's about Yahushua. So, we're coming into something, we came into something that's more important than our individual, goals or aspirations or whatever you want to call it. All right, none of those things matter in the grand scheme of things. Okay, this truth, like we are a body. All right, and it's a body. We look out, for one another, and it's a certain way we're supposed to treat, one another. Right, a certain mindset we're supposed to have towards one another. So, but let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoiced in himself alone and not another. Right, so let every man prove his own work, right? Examine, the works, that he's doing, right? And then shall he have rejoiced in himself, alone, right, and not in another, right? So if you examine your own works and those works are good, you are able to rejoice in that, right, in your actions and this thing, right? It says not in another, so you don't have to compare the things that you are doing unto somebody else, whether you feel like somebody is doing more than you, and that basically diminishes you as a personal individual in this truth, all right, which that's false, or whether somebody else is not on your level, all right, and that makes you feel some type of way, or that makes you feel good, all right. I'm not supposed to be comparing. Let's see, NIV, all right, says each one should test their own actions, then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. All right. And pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. And you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, right? So focus on your own works and examine yourself to make sure you're doing what you need to be doing, right? And without comparing yourself. It says, for every man shall bear his own burden. Now, anyone reading this would think this is a contradiction to verse 2, right? Which is not saying the same thing. When it says, for every man shall bear his own burden, speaking about your own actions, right? Nobody can have faith for you. Nobody can make you walk, in this truth or follow what the scriptures say, because everybody is not around you, all of the time, right? You got to want this for yourself. You are responsible for your own actions, right? And your own belief and your own faith in this thing. All right. Nobody can't hold your hand. All right. You're responsible for that. Right. Brothers can give you guidance, can lead you in the right direction. All right. Comfort you in your tribulations and in your troubles. But how you walk and how you process and take that information, that's on you. It says, let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things. All right. Going into the believers or people that's being, taught, basically being, generous, in giving and, and sharing, right, with basically whom they learning from. So the scriptures say that the laborer is worthy of his meat, roughly paraphrasing. All right. NLT. Those who are taught in the word of the Most High should provide for their teachers, sharing all good things with them. All right. Boom. It says, "Be not deceived, the Most High is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." So it says, "Be not deceived." Okay. So don't think anything other than this. All right. It says that the Most High is not mocked. Because you got a lot of people, right, that that mock the Most High, whether they do it openly, as far as saying particular things or saying blasphemous things, whether through their actions, right, and not living godly. All right, and only the Israelites can live godly, but just not following the scriptures. Okay, you living in a way that the Most High did not intend. All right, that's mocking him as well by not giving glory unto him, and a way to give glory unto him also is walking, right, in his word, in the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our ability. Because when you go into the Most High, refers to the Israelites as Zion, which in the Hebrew is to Zion, all right, which goes into a monument. So that's something like a memorial. So you should look upon a memorial, and it should remind you of something. And when people look upon us, it should remind us of the Most High. All right. And walking, outside of that, you basically mocking them. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. All right. Now, when you go into sowing and reaping, all right, which Paul uses this, that you could say analogy or metaphor or whatever, right? He uses this a lot, and this goes into planting. All right. So when you sow, they always say sow a seed. All right. So you're sowing or planting a seed. When you plant a seed, whatever you put into that ground, that's what you're gonna receive, and that's what you're gonna get. All right. If it's a apple seed or orange, whatever, right? That's what's going to come back up. Whatever you put in. So this is going into the energy that you put out there, right? People call it karma, all right, but it ain't karma. The Most High is behind this. So the type of energy, or spirit, right, that you put out there, that's what you're gonna get. You do evil, you're gonna receive evil, right? You do righteous, you're gonna receive a righteous reward. For he that soweth to his flesh shall reap of the flesh corruption, right? So if you're into this world, you're constantly into this world, you're constantly, over involved for the things of this place. Your mindset is set on things here, carnal things. You're gonna reap corruption. These things are going to, corrupt you. Let's see what this word corrupt actually means. Pathura.
Strong's G 5356. Thara. Thara.
Yep, I was off. But it says corruption, destruction, right? You're gonna end up being destroyed. What does Micah 2:10 say? Depart, all right, for this world basically will destroy you with a sword of destruction. Right? Arise and depart. Right? That's what it says. Arise and depart. Right? Or basically that this world will destroy you with a sword of destruction, right? Because it's polluted. So you get attached to this place, right? You're going to be destroyed. All right, that which is perishable, and the Christian sends eternal misery in hell, which there is no hell. Okay, but the hell that is spoken about in the scriptures refers to Babylon the Great or America being on fire. And yeah, ultimately, yeah, if you stay in that spirit, that's ultimately what you will receive, that particular judgment. All right. But he that soweth to the spirit shall the spirit reap everlasting life. And sowing to the spirit is the things that you see us doing, the righteous works, right? Doing these lessons, studying, going out teaching to the Israelites, all right, teaching this truth, right? Keeping, the scriptures, the law, statutes, the commandments, all right, to the best of our ability, day in and day out. All right, living a godly lifestyle. That's sowing, to the spirit. Okay, loving, your brother, showing charity. All right. All of those particular things, showing mercy. All right. It says, and let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. So let us not be weary in well doing, right? Sowing to the spirit. Those some of those things I just listed off. All right. And I believe it's Galatians, what was it? Fifth chapter that goes into, the fruits of the spirit. Those are the things that, we're supposed to be doing. All right. So let us not be weary in that. All right. You're not supposed to get tired or lose patience or like all of this for nothing. No, because the reward is coming. All right. It says, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. So those seeds that we are sowing, right, in the spirit, okay, we're going to reap of that, right? If we don't faint, if we don't give up. All right. So that's the lesson. Hope this is edifying. With that, hey, I'm going to say shalom.